Improving your relationship now. How to end all forms of criticism with couples therapist Keith Miller.
I want to talk about criticism today because I think it gets in the way of making your relationship better. It gets in the way of you being happy in your relationship. And it's sometimes hard to see this right away, and that's why we should talk about it. Criticism is really the adult version of an infant's screams. And just think about this for a second. I want to just present this image to you about infants. And my wife and I have a newborn in the house again. We're new parents again, and so we have first-hand knowledge about exactly how an infant sounds when it's in distress. And many of you probably know about this. But the only thing that an infant knows how to do when it's unhappy, it cries. It's kind of like either it's on or it's off. There's very little room for gray in the world of an infant. And all kinds of things fall into the category of making it cry. It can be hungry, and it's the same cry, at least to outsiders. It's this very similar kind of cry to when it's wet, to when it's tired, to when it's cold or when it's hot. Unless you're really attuned to it, all of those cries really sound the same, and they tend to be at the top of their lungs when they're really unhappy. And when we are upset with our partners, one of the things we do fairly quickly is we use criticism. It gets our partner's attention. It inflicts pain on them in order to get them to pay attention to us. In many ways, that's the function of what an infant's screams are doing. It's putting everybody on high alert. It kind of sends this jolt through the nervous systems of anybody within 10 meters that, hey, somebody's got to take care of me right away. And they better do it or I'm going to just keep screaming. For infants, hopefully that works. You know, if you got somebody that is attuned to the infant, they will figure out what the infant needs. Trial and error, or maybe because they know a little bit about babies, they'll change a diaper, or they'll do something intuitively to figure out what that baby needs, and she'll stop crying. When it comes to your relationship, when we use criticism, it's the same kind of primitive mechanism that just puts your partner on high alert, doesn't tell them exactly how to help. It actually gets in their way of helping you because you're inflicting pain on them. And we're going to get to that in a little bit when I define what criticism is. And it prevents your partner from being their best self. So what we want to talk about is how to avoid this. You want to actually make it easier for your partner to help you. And you want to try to avoid what can be a sort of arms race of defensiveness when your partner feels criticized by you and they protect themselves, they get defensive, and they're less likely to meet your needs. And you've just given away your control or any power that you have because you made it harder for your needs to get met. You've kind of made this mountain for your partner to climb in order for them to love you. That's what we want to talk about. We want to get in the business of finding ways to express frustration without using the toxicity in criticism. There is a difference between criticism and frustration. And what is that? Well, first is that there's nothing wrong with frustration. It's natural. It's going to be a part of every relationship. What I try to teach my couples when they come in is how can I deliver my frustration? How can I package it for my partner in a way that he or she can actually receive it and handle it and respond to me in a way that is meaningful for me, in a way that actually helps. So when two or more people get together, you're going to have frustration. When you combine your life in some kind of meaningful way, you're going to realize that, you're going to bump up against somebody who's not you, who's trying to occupy the same space as you, so they do things differently. And there's naturally going to be some places where you bump into that otherness of the other person. And the research from couples who stay together for a long time says that you're not going to ever get rid of frustrations. As a matter of fact, couples who are very happy in their relationship have quite a bit of frustrations with each other. It's It's just a matter of what they do with that frustration and how they package it for each other, how they are able to still stay connected to each other while expressing frustration. And that should be the goal. For a healthy relationship, we should think about how we can minimize the toxicity, which is criticism, any kind of toxic forms of frustration. A criticism is any statement that implies that something is globally wrong with your partner. If you say things like, you always, or you never do this or that, then you're using criticism. And you're going to see sparks if you do that. Statements like these, they paint your partner as always acting or being a certain way. And they imply that this way of being is not as good as something else. That I think, is the perfect recipe to elicit defensiveness from your partner. And when you say global things like you're obsessed, or you're this or you're that, you're making this nice little box around a person, and you're making it really likely that they're going to come back at you with both barrels blaring. So what's the antidote to this? Well, the first thing is to be specific. Don't be global. To talk about yourself. What do I mean by that? Well, this leads me to the second component of criticism. It makes me think of blame, because another way you can tell that criticism is lurking around is when you start to hear in your own voice or in your partner's voice that they're blaming you for the whole problem, that it's all your fault. And any expression of frustration, if you're holding judgment that's intended to blame your partner, make him or her more responsible than you are, that is criticism. You should know better than to work on the car at this hour. Or, don't you know that you've been out here for 3 hours? You can hear the tone in my voice using this rhetorical question. And it's a special form of criticism, I think, to use a rhetorical question like that. You should know better than to work on the car. Or, don't you know you've been out here for 3 hours? You do that, it's designed to shame the other person into changing their troublesome behavior. And you might notice that adults do this often with kids. And actually, I think it's an insult. Like when you hear somebody say, "Why are you so slow?" Or "Why are you so inconsiderate? Why are you so insensitive?" Because what you're doing here, what's implied, and it's left out as if it's so obvious to the whole world that it need not be stated. What you imply is that other people don't have this problem, and that there you are all by yourself doing the wrong thing. Shame on you. And there's that 1-2 punch. It's first blame, this is your fault, and then shame. You know, you're all alone with this, something's wrong with you, and you're a bad person, you're defective. It's designed to make the other person feel lonely, and hopefully, they'll change. Which is not really logical thinking. It seems to make sense at first, but it really doesn't. When a person feels lonely, when they're in pain, they're less likely to access all their resources, be open and flexible, and able to stretch to give you what you need, empathetic with your concerns. So by now you should be getting the idea here that shame and blame are toxic substances inside a relationship. Criticism is a toxic substance inside a relationship. So there shouldn't be too much of it. And the sooner you get these out of your relationship, the sooner you can love and feel loved by the person closest to you. I hope this was helpful for you. Stay with it. Taking the criticism out of your love life is a lot of work, but it's very, very rewarding. You can take the friction out of your natural differences and just allow them to be there. You can adjust. Your relationship will adjust. Share this with your friends and talk safely.
For more ways to help your relationship, visit keithmillercounseling.com.